One story involving ghosts, one story involving aliens. Which is which, I'll let you decide, but I begin my tale with a drive home from work. It's a woman named Danielle, and she's driving home from her job in the city. She lives in a small town in a small suburb in Minnesota. One of those, you drive and you see nothing, and you're driving through beautiful hills and whatnot, and eventually you get to the small town. There's a market. There's like a main street, a main thoroughfare, a market, a butcher's, just like your usual stores that you have in a small town. Houses that are close together, far enough apart to appreciate your space, but close enough that you know your neighbor is always there. Because it's important to have good, strong neighbors. As Danielle's driving home this specific day from work, she's listening to her favorite Christian radio station, where she hears a sermon, a hellfire sermon, which aren't particularly her favorite, but she likes the brevity of it. And the man speaks in a deep, booming voice about the end times, and the times before, and what will happen when the end comes. As she gets closer to home, the radio cuts out and a white noise comes on the radio. She fiddles through the stations and finds that they're all that way, but she doesn't really think anything of it. As she drives past the main street, it's getting about dusk, and she can't help but notice that even for a small town, and even on a warm summer night like that night, there's a lot of people standing in the street, all with bewildered looks. As she pulls into her driveway, she turns off her car and sees her husband, Nick, and her children, Jessica and Kale, standing outside. Which is odd, because as much as her family loves her, and she loves her family, they rarely are outside to greet her when she gets home. She gets out of her car, she turns the ignition off and gets out of her car, and she says, "What's going on? It seems like there's kind of a hubbub around town." And her husband says, "The power's out. Nothing seems to be working. We were all inside, and about 10 minutes ago, the power just cut." She says, "Well, the phones probably still work." So they go inside and try the phones, and sure enough, the phones don't work. Cell phones all seem to be getting no service, or have just stopped working altogether. No computers, no microwaves, no electric ovens, no televisions. All the power in their house is out. As Danielle comes outside, she realizes her neighbors are out too, and she walks over. And she says, "Are you guys having a power outage as well?" And they say yes, that nothing works. One of the girls was in the bathroom, and it went completely dark, and she slipped and fell. Her arm seems like it's broken. So Danielle gets everyone into the car and puts the key in the ignition and turns it. And it doesn't work either. The car that she was in merely 20 minutes ago no longer will start. They try her husband's car, and they try the neighbor's car, but none of the cars are working. It's about a half mile into town. Thankfully, the woods aren't very thick. The sun is just set and starting to get pretty dark out. So she carries the child, because she's stronger than Nick, because Nick has polio. She carries her neighbor's child with her, and her neighbor is thankful, for her arm is injured, and it's one less thing that she has to worry about. Danielle's children are strong, and so she knows that everyone will be okay if they stay close together. The main thoroughfare of town is kind of down more so in the valley. It's all surrounded by forests. As they get through, they see everybody gathered in the town square. None of the street lamps have come on yet. Nothing at all. There seems to be kind of a consensus that nothing's really working anymore, and that it all went out around the same time. "What should we do?" she asks the mayor. And he says, "I've looked into it, and we've used a CB radio, but there's nothing but white noise coming through. A fine... They're not sure exactly what's going on." Thankfully, the town doctor is there, and he mends the little girl's broken arm, puts it in a cast, and sets it. But you can kind of tell that people are beginning to be on edge, for it's nightfall now, and it's a new moon, so there's very little light. Bright light, brighter than anything they've seen, just blinds them all, and they can't see. They all shield their eyes, and once they can tell, because even with your eyes shielded, you can tell when the light goes out, they open them, and there's a man looking very bedraggled. He's carrying with him a long steel pipe. anger. He runs at Danielle and picks up his pipe, but thankfully she knows martial arts and she stops him. She knocks him to the ground and she holds her foot on his neck and she says, "Who are you and what are you doing?" And he says, "My name is Gary. Leave me alone, leave me alone." And they let him up and some of the stronger guys hold him. He says, "My name is Gary." He says, "I'm from the next town over and we're having problems. All of our power seems to have gone out and there's nothing working left. They sent me into the forest to come to see to the next town over how far it is. I've walked 2 miles in the pitch blackness, and I'm just happy to find you guys. If I hadn't heard that little girl crying, I'm not sure I would have found you at all, for the town was small." Everyone kind of looks at each other, because they're a small-knit town, and they care for one another. These are not just co-workers. These are the friends and family. These are people who have lived their whole lives. They ask him a couple questions, and it seems like his story's legit, that he's really from the next town. And they ask him about what time it happened, and it seems that things are kind of matching up, that from his town and their town, there's something going on. They say, "Well, what should we do? We need to figure it out." And Gary said, "I left everybody I knew and loved, and I don't know if they're okay. I'm really scared. Will people come back with me? Can we go check? Maybe we can bring everyone through the forest." They decided that it would be best to get maybe a weapon or two, just as he had a steel pipe, in case they run into anybody or anything that they shouldn't. So they go to the butcher's, and they notice that the door is cracked just slightly open. Now, a butcher's shop, you don't want to leave the door open just for flies and whatnot, so it kind of adds to the eeriness of everything that's going on. Danielle steps through with the lead pipe in hand, followed by Gary and her husband. And as they step in, they can smell flesh. They can smell the meat in the butcher's shop. It's obviously beginning to turn, as there's been no power, so no refrigeration. As they step through the door, they see a large figure rushing towards them, and Danielle picks up the pipe and swings to protect her friends. As they drag out the body, they realize that it's the butcher, and he was doing nothing but coming towards them. The townspeople start to bicker back and forth. One person is already dead, one girl's arm is hurt, and it seems like people are getting more and more anxious. "What are we going to do about this? Someone needs to step forward. We need to have a solution. My car was just working and it's not anymore," says somebody. Someone else says, "I've got a battery-powered radio, and I can't get anything on it." There's a panic among the town, and people start bickering amongst themselves, start pushing and shoving, and somebody else gets hurt. There's just a general pandemonium, and no one knows what to do. So Danielle says, "Let's all go together. There's no point in leaving anybody behind." So together as a group, they step into the forest. A pitch blackness surrounds them, blackness like the darkest of nights. They feel their way through it, when all of a sudden they hear a loud boom, and they see figures rushing towards them. Everybody panics and begins to swing, and pandemonium breaks loose. The only sound that can be heard are lead pipes and bats whacking the back of skulls and the soft thuds of bodies falling. About a mile away, in a large clearing, sit 2 aliens by their spaceship, watching everything with their minds. One says to the other, "This is so much easier than the old days. We just take away their toys, and they pretty much do all the work for us." And the other alien says, "Yes, they always fear us from above, but they don't realize that the enemy lies within." The end.